What's going on, everybody? Khalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons to buy the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 in 2022. Now, as the name suggests, this phone is the successor of last year's Moto G Stylus 5G that came out pretty much a year ago at this time. So I'm going to be giving you 5 of my favorite things about it to help you decide whether or not it's the right phone for you. Now, if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out my full review and tips and tricks videos for it on the channel. And for the latest up-to-date pricing, be sure to check out the link in the video description because this is always changing. But with that being said, let's get started. So my first reason to buy the Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 in 2022 is the storage. With this phone, we're getting 256 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so that is really a lot of storage. You're not always going to find a phone with this much storage. Right now, as of the recording of this video, you can get this phone unlocked through Motorola for around $500. And meanwhile, there are flagship phones like, for example, the iPhone 13 that start at over $700. And the entry-level iPhone 13 only has 128 gigabytes of internal storage, and there's no microSD card expansion with that phone. So even though the Moto G Stylus 5G is not nearly in the league of a flagship phone, if you want a phone that has a lot of storage and you don't want to spend a bunch of money getting a flagship phone that has a terabyte, then the Moto G Stylus 5G is always going to be a great option. Now, my second reason to buy the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 in 2022 is the battery. With this phone, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 15-watt fast charging. So first of all, when it comes to the battery size, you're getting pretty much the biggest battery you possibly can, at least in the US. And at 5000 mAh, this is a really large battery. You're going to get tons of battery life throughout the day. So if you have a more mobile lifestyle where you're not always around a charger, this is going to be a great thing because even if you're on your phone a lot, you're probably going to have enough battery life to not even have to charge this phone during the day. Another great thing about a large battery like this is that since you're starting out with so much battery life, depending on how you use your phone, probably even multiple days worth, down the road as the battery degrades, which all batteries do, you're not going to see it affect the battery performance of this phone nearly as quickly since you're already starting out with so much more life than you need. So if you like to get one phone and keep it for a longer period of time without having to replace it, then this phone is going to be a great choice for that. And then of course, the fast charging is another cool thing about this battery. Now, 15-watt fast charging isn't really anything special. I want to say the vast majority of phones in general have that, but it's still not a bad thing to have by any means, and if you need to charge up your phone in a hurry, you are going to see it make a difference. Now, my third reason to buy the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 in 2022 is the processor. Now, with this phone, we're getting 8 gigabytes of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G processor. It really kind of goes without saying that this is a 5G phone, which pretty much every phone in this price range is. But that being said, keep in mind that even though 4G is not going away anytime soon, and it's still not absolutely necessary to get a 5G phone, I do still think it's a really good idea because in this day and age, 5G is really the future. So of course, if you want access to your carrier's 5G network and the latest and greatest technology, then by all means, a 5G phone is definitely the way to go. Now, that being said, as far as the actual processor goes, I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone, and it came back with a single core score of 672 and a multi-core score of 1917. Now, this may or may not mean a whole lot to you because a Geekbench 5 score really needs something to compare it to. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current device and then comparing your results to these to see whether or not this phone would be an upgrade for you, because depending on what you currently have, your phone might be faster than this one. But I will say, just from having run this test so many times on so many different phones, this is actually a really good score. Now, for a phone in this exact price range, it's not really quite as impressive as it would be if maybe the phone were $200 less, because in the price range between $400 and $500, we got phones like the iPhone SE and the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, depending on the deal you can get. Those phones are actually entry-level flagship phones, and pretty much any flagship phone made in 2022 is going to be way faster than this. But that being said, one thing to consider is that with this phone, since it is more of a mid-range phone, there is a pretty good chance that you're not going to get it for full price. In fact, I want to say under normal circumstances, it's pretty unlikely you're actually gonna be paying full price for this phone because carriers have all kinds of deals. So considering that, compared to other similar phones like, for example, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G and the OnePlus Nord N200 5G, stuff like that, this phone is actually really good, and in my experience, I really haven't had any performance issues. It's been able to do pretty much everything really well, from stuff like web browsing, social media, streaming content like music and videos, to stuff like mobile gaming. Nothing's really given me any trouble. So unless you're doing something something really high-end like playing Fortnite or maybe editing videos, when it comes to processing power, for most people, the Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 will absolutely get the job done. Now my fourth reason to buy the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 in 2022 is because it has NFC. Now for a Moto G phone, this is actually pretty unusual. In fact, this phone is the first Moto G phone I've ever seen that actually does have NFC, and while this feature is not uncommon at all for any other mid-range phone from any other manufacturer, for whatever reason, Motorola just never put NFC in the Moto G phones, and again, this is the first one I've seen that has it, and while it is disappointing that the other Motorola phones don't have it, it's better late than never, so it's definitely a nice feature to see in this phone. Now in case you don't know what it is, NFC is the technology behind contactless mobile payment services like Google Pay, Amex Pay, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, all that kind of stuff. So if you like to use tap and pay features, you'll be happy to know that for the first time, at least that I've seen, you'll be able to do that with a Moto G phone. Now my fifth reason to buy the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 in 2022 is the display. When it comes to the display for a mid-range phone, this phone really has pretty much nothing wrong with it, and I would say it's easily among the best both in its price range and above. So with this phone, we're getting a 6.8-inch 120Hz IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 395, an aspect ratio of 20.5:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of about 85.8%. So first of all, the most obvious thing about this display is that it's really large. With a large display, of course, it's going to be great for content consumption, so if you're streaming videos, looking at photos, playing games, even something simpler like reading, you're of course going to get a better experience with a larger display. In addition to this, even though the phone is pretty large, it's not really that bulky, it has a decently slim design, so it's not going to be uncomfortable to hold in your hand or carry in your pocket. When it comes to size, another cool thing about this phone is the dimensions. With an aspect ratio of 20.5:9, we're getting a taller and more narrow form factor here, and this is good for several different reasons. First of all, if you're doing something in landscape mode, like for example watching a video, you're going to get a much more immersive experience. And then if you're doing something vertical, like for example reading, you can fit more content on the screen without having to scroll as much. So in general, having a taller and more narrow form factor is typically a lot better than having a shorter and wider form factor. Now, aside from the size and dimensions, the quality of the image is also really good. The IPS LCD display looks really nice, the colors are nice and bold, and the viewing angles are surprisingly good as well. The 1080p resolution, of course, is going to give us a nice sharp image, which is another great thing for content consumption, and if that wasn't enough, the 120Hz refresh rate is going to make the movement on the screen a little bit faster and smoother. So if you're doing something like streaming videos, playing a game, or even just navigating through the phone in general, anything that involves motion is going to feel a little bit faster and smoother, giving you a much more premium experience. So in general, if you're consuming a lot of content and you really want a good display, then the Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 is going to be a great choice. But those were 5 reasons to buy the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 in 2022. Now, seeing that this is a really good device, there are a lot more than 5 reasons to buy it, but there are also some reasons why you might not want it. So if you want to learn more about that, be sure to check out my full review and other videos about the phone on the channel. And once again, for the latest up-to-date pricing, don't forget to check out the link in the video description because this is always changing. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you found the information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. But as always, I will see you in the next video.